So now we're going to look at converting fractions, decimals and percentages. Now, when it comes to converting fractions to decimals, you need to remember, I'll say this again, all fractions are essentially division sums. So for example, 3/4. So 3/4 is 3 divided by 4. So in order to convert that into a decimal, I'm sure some of you know what it is straight off anyway, but if you didn't know what it was as a decimal, to convert it into a decimal, you would do the sum 3 divided by 4. Now, to make sure you get everything around the right way, write the sum as you say it. So it's 3 divided by 4. Now, 4 will not go into 3, but remember, you can add a decimal point and zeros after the decimal point, and it does not change the value of the original number, but it gives you somewhere to take your carrying to. So 4 will not go into 3, so we put a 0 here, decimal point directly above. We can then carry the 3 across. Now 4 will go into 37 times, because 4 times 7 is 28. You would then have a remainder of 2 to carry across, and 4 will go into 25 times exactly. So 3/4 as a decimal would be 0.75. So just remember, to convert fractions into decimals, you just do a division sum. Now, where you're dividing the numerator by the denominator. Now, to convert a decimal into a fraction, the easiest thing to do is to take them into a decimal fraction. Now, by decimal fraction, I'm talking about the place value after the decimal point. So in our number system, each column, this side of the decimal point is 10 times bigger, and each column, this side of the decimal point is 10 times smaller. So we have tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, and it carries on from there. Now, to convert a decimal, so if we were to take the decimal 0.12, 0.12, we would take the numbers after the decimal point here. They would become the numerator of our fraction, and our denominator will be the place value of the column where this number ends. So this is our final number, and that is in the hundredths column. So this would be 12/100ths. Now, once we've got to here, we would then simplify. Well, 12 and 100 can both be divided by 4, and that will give us 3/25. This is the fraction in its simplest form, because 3 is a prime number and it's not a factor of 25, so we cannot reduce that any further. We'll now go and have a look at how we can convert decimals into percentages. Now, decimals into percentages and percentages into decimals. Remember, with percent means out of 100. So if we were going to convert 15%, okay, to get that into a decimal, we would divide 15 by 100. So 15% would be equivalent to 0.15 as a decimal. Now, for example, if we had 0.23 as our decimal and we wanted to convert that into a percentage, we would simply times it by 100, and that would become 23%. Okay, so to go from percentage to decimal, you divide by 100. And to go from decimal to percentage, you multiply by 100. Converting fractions into percentages and percentages into fractions. Again, remember that percentage means out of 100. So if we were to have, for example, 7/25, and we wanted that to be a percentage, 25 is a factor of 100, so you can just create an equivalent fraction. So remember, percentage always means out of 100. So to go from 25 to 100, you would times by 4. And remember, when creating equivalent fractions, whatever you do to the denominator, you need to do the same to the numerator. So we would times by 4 here. So this would become 28/100ths, which would be 28%. So that's the method you can use, create an equivalent fraction where the original denominator is a factor of 100. If it isn't, so for example in 3/8, 8 is not a factor of 100, so you cannot just create an equivalent fraction. You can turn any fraction into a percentage by timesing it by 100/1. So we would then multiply our fractions, so 3 times 100 is 300, 8 times 1 is 8, So then you are left with 308, which is the same as 300 divided by 8. And if we pop that into a bus stop, so 8 will not go into 3, 8 goes into 30 3 times with a remainder of 6, 8 will go into 67 times and we have a remainder of 4. Remember, you can put your decimal point in here and here, add your 0, carry over your remainder 4, and 8 will go into 45 times, giving you an answer of 37.5%. So that is how you can change any fraction into a percentage. And this is how you can change a fraction into a percentage when the denominator is a factor of 100. And the last thing we're going to look at today is how we turn fractions into percentages. So with a fraction, to turn a fraction into a percentage, so 4/5, for example, if we were to look at percentage into fraction first of all, so if we had 4%, to turn that into a fraction, remember percentage means out of 100, so that would be 4 out of 100. And we could simplify that down. 4 and 100 can both be divided by 4 to give you 1/25. So any fraction, any percentage can be turned into a fraction just by putting the percentage amount over 100. Now, if you had something like 48.5%, you could do 48.5 over 100. Now, we don't have decimals as numerators, so you would need to multiply this out by 10 to make it 485, and you would need to multiply this out by 10 to make it 1000. So 48.5% is 485 1,000ths, and you could simplify that down by dividing by 5 to 97 over 200. That would be how you would do that there. Okay, so that's how you would go from a percentage into a fraction.